the people bearing the brunt of the challenges on the ground are fighting the good fight. Very easy to do that, but you need to be in the circumstances before you can talk.
So I have a few stats here and you can add to it or correct. So murder in the Western Cape increased 9.1% in recent crime statistics. 75% of murders in Cape Town occur in the Cape Flat areas, many linked to gang violence. Over 90% of South Africa's gang-related murders occur in the Western Cape. Firearms are used in more than 60% of these murders. Let's paint a picture for the South Africans. How brutal is it really in these areas?
So to give you an idea nationally first, we have about almost 3 murders per hour in the country. So while you and I are sitting here, 3 people will be killed. More or less 71 murders per day. And that's the reality of what we're facing. Now, obviously, in the gang violence space, a lot of those funerals are gangsters. Now, I've said it before, and that is that I've got no love lost for gangsters. If they want to kill each other, by all means do that. The issue that I have is the innocent people, the good people, which I might add are in the majority, are the ones being held hostage by these evil buggers that continue to wreak havoc. The stats that were released a few weeks ago for the end of 2025 indicated that only 257 out of the 1,187 murders in a quarter in the Western Cape were actually gang-related. It's about 22%, which makes no sense at all because according to us, over 70% is gang-related, and that murder specifically in the Western Cape is heavily concentrated in gang-related, call it gang-related areas or gang-ridden areas. When we go to places, for example, Mitchell's Plain, Kraaifontein, Gugulethu, Nyangalanga, Mfuleni, Manenberg, Delft, etc., when we look at the broader Cape Flats, we record anywhere between 35 and 50 murders per week. And the large majority of those are gang-related. And as you correctly said, between 50 and 60%, I think the latest for the Western Cape was 54%, was committed with illicit firearms, which is important because it actually highlights what we spoke of earlier, is that the perception by people like Gun Free South Africa is that law-abiding citizens are running around killing people. That's the impression that they create because they keep on punishing people that aren't committing the murders. But these guys that are actually busy slaughtering people at a rate very few can keep up with, a war zone kind of rates, are not being punished for using illicit firearms or having or trading them, etc. Broader context for the country, you know, murder is one thing, and it's probably the most accurate indicator of how serious violent crime is. But when we look at something like rape, for example, 127 reported rapes per day. And remember, quite a few years ago, I think it was the Institute for Security Studies they released, I think it was a report of some kind, where they said that only about 1 out of 10 rapes are actually reported. So that number is in effect far higher than what we've been told. To give you an idea of the kind of numbers that from basically a City of Cape Town metro point of view, the Metro Police alone and local law enforcement confiscate firearms at, that will give you an idea of how heavily armed some of these people are. Now, October 2025 until January of 2026, the city enforcement agencies confiscated 117 firearms. That's just the city. The conviction rate for those guns that were confiscated is less than 1%.
8 suspects were arrested in connection with 6 AK-47 rifles, 8 9mm pistols, and ammunition found in a flat in Bellville.
What went wrong with regard to the police? How did they have this excellent operation, such a huge success, and the next day, after all that work was done, after all the intelligence they followed up, we see that the suspects are freed, no charges, and no case on the roll at court.
So that means that people with illicit firearms in the City of Cape Town are not prosecuted and convicted by national government, and they're not sufficiently investigated in order to ensure that prosecution can be successful.